So, Andrea, can you give us a little bit of a background into who you are?
My name is Andrea. I work in corporate finance in the manufacturing industry in Zurich.
Since when have you been working for your current company?
I've been working there for almost a year now.
How was the experience as a candidate?
As a candidate, so it was a fun and weird experience at the same time, I would say. So I had an interview with them because I saw that they had one person that I was in touch with, that she was working with me in my previous companies, that she saw my profile on LinkedIn. And since I was looking for a job, I looked for any opening that they had in the company to see if there was anything that was suitable for me. And indeed, I saw that they had a couple of options, but they didn't really look that interesting. But I still thought, oh, let's contact her back. And she told me, yeah, we are actually looking for something that could be interesting for you. Why don't you come tomorrow for an interview? And I was like, okay, interesting. I didn't really know which one of the two positions it was or for anything else, but I thought, let's just go. And why did I say weird and fun at the same time? Because when I got to the office, the first thing I received from them when I saw my contact, it was a hug. And she hugged me and she told me, oh, nice to see you. How are you? Blah, blah, blah. And I was a little bit, surprised. That's not really the kind of job interview you usually have. And then we entered this meeting room where there was the hiring manager. And for the first 10, 15 minutes, they were just making fun of each other and making fun of themselves. And I think that helping setting up a nice atmosphere that was quite joyful. And then little by little, the transition into explaining about the company, explaining about the role, explaining about the team. But the idea I had was more that it was them trying to convince me about joining the team rather than me had to convince them that I was the right candidate for the role they were looking for. And it doesn't mean that they didn't ask me anything, but I think they were more looking for the reaction I had and when they were seeing and what kind of questions I had. And at the end, I think I probably made 4 or 5 questions in like almost 2 hours of interview. So it was quite strange because I felt like it was more me assessing them rather than the other way around. And I still think that anyways, based on what we discussed about and all the things that they told me and what I asked and how I was reacting to their what they were saying, I think that actually was probably enough for them to understand if I was the right person. And I thought that they were more looking for the right candidate, somebody that had good soft skills and more business partnering skills rather than something that was extremely too technical. And that's because they were hiring essentially for a business partner.
So it was rather a discussion.
Yes. It was mostly discussion. There were a lot of laughs, or a lot of making fun of ourselves. It was fun. I liked it. I left the interview at the end of these 2 hours, 1 hour and a half, that I felt quite amused and even fun. And I was feeling like, oh, that's a cool company.
Awesome. So you mentioned soft skills. What kind of soft skills are important for your position?
I think it's important to communicate with your business partners. I think it is important to understand what do they need. I think it is important to come across as somebody that is also a fun person to work with. At least that's what is important in the company culture. I think I would say these are 3 important skills. I'm not sure they are all of them, but for sure they are the skills that I could see.
How were they able to elicit that you had those soft skills from the interview?
I think it was, as I said, a chat where a little bit it was making fun of themselves, so seeing how I was reacting to this context. I think it was, seeing how I was reacting to them explaining the company and seeing if I had the right questions, if I was kind of understanding what they were talking about. So it's also a matter of understanding if you have the right curiosity. We were talking also about, business casing approval. So I provided some ideas of how I would have approached, for instance, a problem that they were having in HR. And I think that helped in, understanding if I had some business acumen. So I think in many different ways, you can still see if the person that you're trying to hire has the right soft skill that you're looking for.
You mentioned it was very warm. They were trying to kind of convince you to join the company.
Yeah.
How transparent were they about the positives, the not so positives?
I had the feeling that they were quite transparent and explaining me about how the company was in the good and in the bad ways. So, for instance, yeah, they were saying it is a solid company, it is profitable, but maybe not expecting it to be. I don't remember now exactly what they say, but probably they say something like, don't expect it to be too innovative. Don't expect it to be a company that is going to grow all of a sudden because of some technological innovation. So I think that they were good in describing about how the company was, but also about the role itself. They explained to me that the workload was quite high, that there were a lot of things to work on. It was not only on certain areas or the main areas I was working on, but also that there were some other areas I would have had to take account of. So I think that there was an open and transparent communication, which I think is vital, because then you don't want to start working and then thinking that it's completely different from what you've been told.
So you had the feeling that you knew what you were walking into.
I had the feeling, yes.
So as a candidate, what made you decide for this company rather than any other?
I think the interview process played a big part. I had the feeling that it was a company that was assessing more the person rather than the technical skills. So I had the feeling it was a company where they were paying attention in the kind of people that you were hiring and also hiring people that you want to have fun with. And I think that together, of course, with what everybody can see of a company, right? That it's a solid company. You can see the financial statements. You can do some cross-check. But then at the end of the day, it's a matter of what feeling did you have when you left the interview. And the feeling was definitely very positive. So that was something that played for sure a big factor.
Were there many interview stages?
Yeah, after this, I had an interview with the main business partner, and then I had an interview with the head of the division. So 3 interview in total.
How long did it take?
This one was, the first one was 1 hour and a half, 2 hours, something like that. But the following ones were, I think, 1 hour. I think it was 1 hour, yes.
And the process from beginning to end?
From the beginning to the end, I think it took like no more than 3-4 weeks.
3-4 weeks.
Yes.
So relatively
fast.
fast. Yeah. Great. With your experience in different interview processes, what are you taking on as a hiring manager now?
I took on the fact that it also is on us, on the hiring manager and the company, to convince the candidates, because yes, I want to hire the right person, but I also want the right person to work for the company that they think is the right company for them. So I think it is important to explain well how the organization is in terms of, organization chart. I always like to make drawings on the board and explain how the different entities are interrelating to each other. Or I always like to explain how the team is and what are the different interaction. And I think that is very important. But I think it's also important to be transparent. And if there is something that is a mess, it's fair to say it, because then you don't want the person that will join the company to be working in an environment that is completely different from what they've been told.
What would you say you did that made you stand out?
I did a good assessment. So the company, on top of the 3 interviews that I mentioned, you also had to do an assessment, which is more for your attitude, your skills. So I did that very well, and I think that played a part. But then I think that in the case they assess my communication skills as much stronger than the other candidates, and ultimately the soft skill is very strong. I can't talk about the technical skills because they were not much assessed, but I think that once you see the profile and you see what one person did and the different experiences they did, sometimes you can take for granted certain skills, but you can focus more on the soft skills.
So you had a personality assessment that you had to...
Yes, there was also a personality assessment, correct.
And you did it on your own time, or?
They sent you a link at home. You could do it at home. You had few days to work on it. And one part was about the personality, and the other part was about problem solving. So,
accurate were the results?
the results were very good. So I think, I think, yeah, the results were very accurate.
Okay, great. When there was an offer,
Yeah.
was there a negotiation? How was the communication around it?
I've been sent the offer, and then I asked for a call with the HR to discuss about some details. The negotiation was quite straightforward because I initially said that I was interested into a bracket where I gave a minimum and a maximum, and I was given something that was exactly in between. And then I said, actually, I would like to stay on a longer term. I'm looking for a continuity of a collaboration with this company. So if we can think of the higher bracket, that would make me more certain about this offer. And yeah, finally, that was accepted.
And did you talk about the salary from the beginning of the process?
Yes, it was one of the very few questions that they asked me during the interview. It was exactly on what was my salary expectation.
As a hiring manager, what makes a candidate stand out to you?
I think it's a combination of things. It's never only one thing. So with the candidates that I've been hiring recently, I've been hiring for 2 different positions. It was always a mix between technical and soft skills. So I always prepared a business case or some very technical questions that I could understand if you actually know what we are talking about, or if you have the skills and the knowledge that we're looking for. But then I always assessed a lot about the soft skills. And I also answer to myself question like, is this somebody that I would like to work with? Is this somebody I can have fun working with? Is this somebody that could be standing a difficult conversation with a business partner? I think these are all things that are super important to look at. Same as understanding based on the path that the candidate had, if it's somebody that is resilient, if it's somebody that can fight for what they want to do. I think these are all important skills that I assess when I hire.
And how important is the follow-up from the candidate side? Thank you emails.
I think it is important. I appreciate it because it shows that the candidate liked the interview and that is interesting about the position. I think it is important. At least an email, I think, it's good.
Companies are looking at different ways of automating the recruitment experience. From a candidate perspective, how do you feel, for instance, about video interviews? Interview where you're videotaped and you upload.
As a candidate, I had only a few times a company that was asking me to do a video recording. I didn't like it because it makes you very nervous. You never know what to wear, what background to have, all these kind of things. And then sometimes you also have the chance to re-record something. So that means that you will be a perfectionist and you will be wasting a lot of time. And I don't think it worked particularly well in my case because those few times that I had to record a video interview, then I was not selected for the next step. So it's not something that I'm particularly happy about. One thing that I don't like is when companies are asking you for a lot of effort, like recording a video interview or doing some personalities assessment, or even just a very long application process where you have so many things to fill in and then you don't even receive a feedback. I just find it a little bit unfair and also discouraging because I can understand that from one side, companies can think, if you're really motivated, you should go through all of this because you want to work for us. But on the other side, you also have many candidates and, maybe I might apply for 10 different positions in a week because I'm interested in many different roles and many different, even in different areas and different cities. And at some point, you also want to privilege the ones that maybe are also faster for you at the beginning. So it is something that I think some companies should reconsider how much they're asking to candidates.
What would be your recommendation if a company has many applicants at the same time?
I think it's important to do filtering, of course, because you always want to have a short list and you don't want to, as a talent acquisition manager, to present too many candidates. I think it is important to not to have tools such as video interviews, because that could cut out people that simply are not good in video interviews, and not necessarily they're not good in interviews or in communicating. What is important is, I always liked when they shortlisted some candidates, but not too much. So for instance, if I have 100 applications for a role and you give me only 3 candidates, I will wonder, what about the other 97 if I am the hiring manager? And I will ask for more. I will ask to see some other shortlisted candidates. So I think it's always better when you have maybe 10 shortlisted or maybe even 15, and then I, as hiring manager, can look at these profiles and think of which ones we want to interview, which could be the 3 shortlisted one.
Filtering, but not
too much. And then I think it's also important. The problem, I think, is also that once you have the talent acquisition or the HR team filtering, they will look at the job description and they will look at the CV and they will try to match it. But it's sometimes I think you should also look at what could be the potential, or based on how somebody grew, what different opportunities you had, what is your personal story, how much you can fill the gaps comparing to what you already did, and what is your job advertisement. And I think that sometimes in HR, it's hard to do that. And it's obvious because they want to present something that is similar to what they're looking for. But if you present the perfect candidate sometimes, which is 100% matching what the job ad is outlining, then you might find somebody that is simply not motivated to do the job because already is doing that role, maybe.
So you want to ensure that there's a stretch assignment.
I think it works in both ways, right? So you should, of course, find somebody that has already several skills that you're looking for, but you probably should get to 80% of the skills that you're looking for. And then there might be the 20% that you can bridge the gap. And then, of course, it is up to you, hiring manager, hiring company, to assess if the person that you're interviewing can bridge that gap.
Cover letter or no cover letter?
I think it's, I don't find it particularly helpful as a hiring manager. Mm-hmm. The first thing I will look is the resume or CV. That will tell me 90% of the information that I need to find. Cover letter can give you some more information, but what I find is that most of the times is just some made up sentences that you're not particularly looking for. But there can be some interesting information. For instance, if somebody just moved to Switzerland and you write it in the cover letter, that could be giving you some information as for why this person that has the last work experience in another city or even another country, why is this person applying for a role here?
So do you think the use of AI in recruitment processes will work favorably for employer branding or negatively?
It's hard to say. AI is something relatively new and it's developing so quickly. So I could imagine that in the future, the AI will be helping a lot in filtering, in screening the candidates. But for sure, you will always need some human interaction at some point. So you will always need somebody that is interviewing the candidates and filtering them for you before having an interview with the hiring manager.
What factors did you take into consideration when you decided to apply or not apply for a role?
Provided that I'm not looking for anything right now, I do like to see, I think it's a mix between the company, the location, the role that I will need to cover, salary expectations if they're met with what I'm looking for. And yeah, I think that's when I apply. And then when I interview, on top of this, I would add how was my job interview experience, and if I like the people that I spoke with, and if I could see some future developments as well, not only the role that I'm interviewing for, but also if in the future there can be some possible growth.
What attracts you to a job advert over another one?
I think it's a mix of the things I said before, right? So company, location, what is the industry, what is the role that you are hiring for what is the job title, and based on that I could also maybe understand a bit about the salary. Unfortunately, in Switzerland you don't disclose the salary, but in some other markets you do. So that is also something important. But I can't tell you if there is, I don't know, a more flashy job advertisement than another that seems more interesting, or if you, not particularly. Sorry, I can't answer to this question.
No, but you brought a cool subject, the, like posting salary bands for different positions. This is quite controversial. Like it's been, it's obligatory in certain countries.
Yeah.
In Switzerland, not.
Yeah.
Some countries where it is obligatory, they do a massive salary band, so from 100K to 300K.
Yeah.
So posting salaries on job adverts, would you like to see it in the future?
I think so. As a candidate, I would like that. I would like that because sometimes there is a discrepancy between how a company is perceiving a certain role and how the market is perceiving that role in terms of both job description but also salary allocated. And needless to say, if I'm a candidate and I know what I'm looking for and I can see that that job advertisement is out of my range, I wouldn't even waste my time and your time.
How do you feel as a candidate about introducing your salary expectation when you apply for a job?
I think it's a fair question from the employer, because of course you want to know if the budget that you have is appropriate for the candidate that you are trying to recruit. It's always a bit tricky for you as a candidate because you are scared that by saying what you think that role is worth to be paying or what you're looking for, you're scared to be completely left out. And maybe you've been shooting a little bit too high. But I think it is part of the game.
Do you have any tips for hiring managers?
I think it's important to always be transparent and explaining the role that you are looking for with pros and cons. And then it will be up to the candidate to take the job or not. You don't want to have somebody that is being sold for something that is not going to exist and that is going to be meeting the reality and being very disappointed after already the first week.
Mm-hmm.